With dozens upon dozens of anti-traitless units in the battle cats, which ones truly come on top? And in this video, I have the best unit in each rarity against traitless enemies with a few honorable mentions, so make sure you stick to the end of the video to find out which units are the best in their rarity against traitless enemies. And starting us off is going to be Gigando, who is representing the specials. He is, of the legend rares, one of the two anti-traitless specialists, the other one being Damaru, who is very good as a tanker, but Gigando is strong against traitless enemies. He has a guaranteed surge, and all of this makes him very powerful. And he is just a pure support and attacker at the same time because of his high health, his decent survivability, and his absurd damage towards them. So he absolutely cooks them. And Dagamaru, he's good, but I don't think he deserves to be on this list as a special. But there are some very, very powerful specials. They're just not purely specialist. And that gets me to my next point, too. All of the units on this list only have their niche of traitless. So you're not going to see units like Chronos that are good against 10 different traits or whatever. You're going to see pure specialists. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. Gigando, in terms of effectiveness against traitless enemies, is an A tier. His only downfall is in mixed stages, but he is still more than powerful enough to fend off enemies thanks to his surge. So he's a good generalist and a great specialist. Giving him an A. So normal was a little tricky because there are really no anti-traitless units except for Damaru, who can knock them back. But Eraser is the best cat of the class, and he's effective against every trait. And he's a fantastic meat shield, and he's also the second unit in the game you get. So don't worry too much about availability. You will get him. Don't worry. I guarantee you. As long as you don't put the phone down 1 minute after downloading the game, you will get him. And for that reason as well, he's very good because he's impactful throughout the entire game. But later in game, do keep in mind he loses some usage out to specialist meat shields like Ramen and another unit that you will get to see on this list shortly. And that unit is going to be Brainwashed Eraser Cat. And in terms of effectiveness against traitless, he also gets an S tier. And he is, in my opinion, the best super rare against traitless enemies. There really aren't a lot to pick from in terms of just pure specialist. And he has a ton of health. He's similar to Ramen Cat in a lot of regards. But make sure to bring in some research combos. His research is more sluggish than normal Racer. Keep that in mind. And also mixed stages, he's pretty weak because he has insane health towards traitless, and outside of that, he is pretty weak, as I said. So keep that in mind. But he is very effective against traitless. He does everything he's supposed to. And yeah, not much more else to say about him. Just a very solid meat shield. The other super rare I had, who would be the runner-up, is going to be, yeah, that's right, I have the tier here. It's going to be Neo Power Driller, and he could weaken enemies at a guaranteed clip at a 90% effectiveness. So he brings them down to 10% of their normal damage. That's huge. It's guaranteed. But the problem is, despite his high range and everything, his big problem is single target. And, that really hinders his usage in mixed stages or stages with fast, non-traitless enemies like, Relic Doge or something, or just mixed stages in general. So make sure to bring him in stages with low enemy counts and an abundance of traitless enemies, or else he will miss his attacks and he will become ineffective at a lot of things. Clear the path for him, though, and he will be similar to a Professor Jobs with better survivability, a bit better speed, and, yeah, more consistent. But do keep those variables in mind. For my top rare, I did pick Glass Cat over Torse. And by the way, this video, in terms of making the list and script making, was incredibly difficult, the research part of this video, because of how many neck-and-neck competitors there were in a few different rarities. So I do have Glass coming up on top, and he's going to be an A tier in effectiveness, because he's a glass cannon, get it, glass cannon, but he is quite good. His biggest problem is single target, and sometimes he attacks the wrong guy, and you got to wait for him to come back, and he does nothing because he dies as soon as he attacks, because he's a metal unit technically and a glass unit, so he just breaks. It's unfortunate, but when he lands shots, especially on 4s, 30, 40, 50, or whatever, very, very effective. He just slows enemies to a crawl, and he gives your army a ton of time to gain money, get units out. He's just amazing. And on top of the 10-second slow, which is guaranteed in his true form, he also gets a knockback. So that's a nice bonus, and it's great for crowd control because a knockback prevents him from moving up anywhere from where he was before. And with research combos, could be incredibly effective. But his big problem is enemies getting in the way of him, and also the single target and the fact that he dies as soon as he lands an impact. For honorable mention, it's going to be Taurus Cat. And Taurus Cat is very good in terms of cheesing. It's like the better version of healer for traitless enemies. And Taurus Cat has single target, which is that's its big downfall, on top of a 39-second cooldown. So if it dies, despite having resistance, it does have 68,000 health against traitless enemies at level 30, which is nice. But its big problem lies in the single target attack, and if it gets killed by a non-traitless enemy, then you have to wait a very long time to get it back for what it does. But its effectiveness would probably be an A or a B, depending on the stage, or an S even. I mean, in cheesing situations, could be very powerful, but yeah. This hurts me a lot. This uber rare and legend rare. The legend rare is a little easier, but I did pick Darken Atim over Shadow Gal, and Darken Atim gets an easy S tier in terms of anti-traitless effectiveness, because at level 30, once strengthened, has 5-digit DPS, on top of area attack, long damage piercing, immunity to warp, immunity to waves. It's very powerful. Before it gets strengthened, it's still powerful, but at 60% health, its damage doubles, making it ridiculously powerful for being a long-range unit. Survivability could be questionable, and you also probably saw Shadow on the list, but Darken Atim's recharge is also more than a minute faster as well, and coupled with faster movement speed, less time in between attacks, he really is a powerful pusher. No disrespect to Shadow Gal, he would also get an S tier in terms of anti-traitless effectiveness. This ranking took the most time to come up with, though. Shadow Gal, I love you. He's an honorable mention. Very powerful. He's a bit of a better generalist. He has a ton more range, but he doesn't miss out on the long range, and that's one thing. And the strengthen is really what sets Darken Atim apart, though. It gives him the stats he needs for having much less range. And on top of that, he's also immune to warp, which means you could bring him in more mixed stages. And warping is always annoying when your main damage dealer is being sent back and you cannot use him. And he also takes up a unit spot in some restriction stages. A very, very honorable mention in Shadow Gal. And Darken Atim, though, he is incredible. And I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt here. Black Zeus is going to be an S tier for me as well. Incredibly effective legend rare. And he was pitted up against Akuma. And Akuma is, he had a bit more DPS, I believe. But Akuma had multi-hit attack, which isn't very good for him. And on top of that, rather than the multi-hit attack, sorry for the pause, Zeus has long distance instead of multi-hit, which is much, much better of a niche. They both have insane damage against traitless enemies, so times 5, think about that. And he also has immune to weaken, so you're going to get that full array of damage. And on top of that, the higher range really does make it powerful. And I believe we're talking over 20,000 DPS against traitless enemies, so that with long range, very, very broken. And I think people forget about Black Zeus. And Akuma is an honorable mention, but he is very powerful. And the multi-hit could be good in some stages, especially with rain Ds and stuff like that, or even annoying, pesky things. But multi-hit tends to be a curse for a lot of these units because it causes them to miss out on the maximum potential damage. Black Zeus, if he misses his attack, though, he has 0 DPS. If he hits his attack, he absolutely wrecks traitless enemies, though. So keep that in mind. They're both good in their own things. And those honorable mentions in some stages could be better than some of the units that made the full list. And I probably should have known that the B and C tiers probably wouldn't be used since these are pure traitless specialists. But if you enjoyed this video, let me know, and I will do this for the other traits. I had fun making it, and I feel like this is a good opinionated video, and it was fun to make. Also, though, if you guys enjoyed, please consider liking, subscribing, and turning on notifications. It all greatly helps our channel out, and it helps us grow, and we're approaching 1,100 subscribers already. So thank you very much. And leave your comments down below, but don't forget to agree to disagree. We all have different opinions. We all believe different things. Let's introduce our ideas to each other rather than force them on other people. And just remember to be respectful and keep the comment section civil. But anyways, guys, thank you for making it this far to the end. SpawnCat signing off, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace!